All right, looks like we've got 11 o'clock on the dot, so let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to SBA Arkansas's PPP Forgiveness 101 webinar for Wednesday, July 15th. My name is Joshua Price, and I am an Outreach and Marketing Specialist for SBA Arkansas. And today on the call, we've got Mr. Herb Lawrence, Lender Relations Specialist Extraordinaire, and we'll also have Suzanne Terrazas, our Economic Development Specialist, and some backup by Mr. Derek Andrews, who's another Outreach and Marketing Specialist, and they will be able to answer your questions as we go through the webinar. So a couple of housekeeping rules. Please mute your microphones. We do have them muted, but at a certain point in the presentation, we will unmute everybody's microphone so that you can ask questions, especially for those who are calling in by phone. But please bear in mind that if you have any type of background noise or you are engaged in a conversation with a coworker, we can hear you. So make sure your mics are muted. In your lower left-hand corner, you will see a chat box. We will be answering questions there live. So if you have any questions throughout the course of the presentation, please go ahead and type those in the chat box, and either Suzanne or Derek will assist you. Also, please do not share any personal information in the chat box. And finally, if you have any other questions, you can always email those to arkansas_do@sba.gov. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Herb.
Great. Thank you, Joshua. I hope everybody can hear me all right. Welcome to our webinar this morning on Paycheck Protection Program, primarily forgiveness. So I am going to be going through the slides. I will, for those of you on the phone who are maybe looking at the slide you print it off or just have on your computer, I'll try to remember to tell you what slide I'm on. If you are looking for any updates about any of our SBA related programs, there is a link down at the bottom of this slide that you can go to that can get you updated information. Next slide. So let's start out with some basics. I am assuming most of the folks on this call, you are looking for some kind of SBA funding to help keep your business operating. Specifically for this one, COVID-related relief fund options. And the slide number 3 that you're looking at, you can see that we have a variety of options that you may want to look into. Obviously, the one we're talking about today, the Paycheck Protection Program, that is for short-term needs aimed primarily at payroll. The Paycheck Protection Program was designed to be offered through a commercial lender with the SBA providing a guarantee to that lender, but the loan is from a lender, and it's aimed at keeping your employees on the payroll to reduce the amount of folks who may have to quit, or you may have to let go into unemployment, etc. So the Paycheck Protection Program was aimed as giving short-term relief to help you, the borrower, keep your employees there. The second type of loan program that is available through the COVID is our EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. We probably need to change part of that. It says with advance. The advance at the moment is no longer available, but the EIDL is. The EIDL is a direct loan from the federal government to the borrower. There is no lender of any type involved. It's strictly between us and you, and it is aimed at providing longer-term operating expense support to keep your business afloat, and can be more open than just aiming primarily at payroll. Typically, when you talk to your commercial lender, if you have not already received a PPP loan, as long as you've got the information the lender needs, they normally can turn those around to you within 3 to 4 days. The EIDL program is taking anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks at the moment, and that's primarily because it is between our disaster office personnel and yourself. And then finally, as part of the COVID relief in our CARES Act, For those individuals who have a regular SBA-related loan, and by that I mean either our 7A guarantee loan program, our 504 fixed asset loan program, or maybe you've got a micro loan, the SBA is offering to actually pay 6 months worth of your principal and interest payments for you to your lender. Now, that also includes if you do not currently have one of those 3 loans, as long as you have that loan in place and closed by September 27th, we will actually cover 6 months worth of your principal and interest to that lender as well. So 3 great programs to help you keep operating and that you need to find out more about. So if you're not familiar with any of that, please reach out to our folks and we'll be glad to explain that more. Slide 4. So here's just a little bit better summary of how the Payroll Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan work. Again, the PPP was aimed primarily to help you with employee payroll related costs and some operating expenses for a short period of time. The EIDL loan can provide you with operating expenses, working capital to help you keep liquid, and it's on a much wider options as far as the use of those proceeds. For the PPP loan, and again, if you're on this call, you probably have already received a PPP loan, and what you want to know now is about forgiveness. I do understand we may have some folks that are still looking into the PPP program, so we'll cover that as well. Understand under the Payroll Protection Program, there is no requirement by the lender for any collateral to secure that PPP loan. For the EIDL, however, we will require collateral if the loan is over $25,000. Now, if it's $25,000 or less under the EIDL, we do not require you to put up collateral. If it's over that, then our loan processing folks will work with you to try and obtain any collateral available. Understand, we will not turn the request down due solely to collateral. But if it's sums available, we probably will want to talk to you about trying to get that. As far as forgiveness, under the Payroll Paycheck Protection Program, we can forgive up to 100% of that loan that you received from your lender, and that's part of what we'll talk about today, how to get that. Under the EIDL, it is not forgivable. It is a term loan, and so there is no grant or forgiveness anymore. Under the program, EIDL program, we did have the advance, which was a addition to the EIDL that could provide you up to $10,000 as a grant. However, those funds have been used up under the advance and are no longer available. The EIDL itself still is. As far as the amount of the loan under the PPP, we can provide you with up to 2.5 times your monthly payroll. That is calculated based on a prior 12 months. Under the EIDL, we can provide you with up to 6 months worth of your normal operating expenses as long as it does not exceed $2 million. On the terms, if there is anything unforgiven on the PPP, you will pay that portion back, and it's currently based on a either 2 or 5 year fixed note, and it's going to be at a 1% interest rate. For the EIDL, if you're a small business, we'll give you 3.75. If you're a nonprofit, 2.75, and you get up to 30 years to make those payments. Of course, there is never a prepayment penalty on that, so it's not like you have to write it out the full 30. As far as deferments, under the PPP, you get 6 months before any unforgiven loan amount would have to start being repaid. That gives you time to get your forgiveness application in. And under EIDL, we're going to give you 12 full months before you would start making any payments there. As far as eligibility under the PPP, all for-profit entities are eligible for consideration. Most nonprofits are as well. Under the EIDL, same thing. We can do sole proprietors, LLCs, corporations, partnerships, agricultural co-ops, and aquaculture-related businesses, as well as private nonprofit entities. To apply on the PPP, you must go to a commercial lender, and we have a list of those if you're not sure, although you want to start with whoever you're doing business with at the moment. And then applying for the EIDL, again, is a disaster loan strictly between the borrower and the federal government through our SBA Office of Disaster Assistance. Slide 5. So because we're here and talking primarily about paycheck, just a quick reminder, or for any of you who are on the call who have not applied for PPP, you must go through an approved SBA lender, and they will help guide you through the process. So first thing to do, if you're looking for a PPP loan, pick up the phone, call your commercial lender that you currently do business with, and start there. We also have a few links that might help in finding a eligible or available lending institution that might help as well. Please do not send any applications to the SBA. Paycheck Protection Program is through a lender, so the applications will go from you, the borrower, to your lending partner. Slide 6. What we're really here for today, though, we're assuming that you're on the call, you've received your PPP loan, and you want, obviously, to get it forgiven. You don't want to have to pay it back. Don't blame you. We don't either. We want you to be able to have that entire loan amount forgiven, and I guarantee your lender wants to have the forgiveness done as well. So how do we do that? First of all, you need to get a application form. Our application form for forgiveness request is the SBA form 3508 or a 3508 EZ. Now, the EZ is a simpler form, and it is aimed at those those borrowers who have had no reduction in their employee workforce. If you did have reductions, then you will need to use the 3508. The links to those application forms is here on this slide, and they are fillable, so you can download those and fill them out. And we also have a good set of instructions for you to use in filling those out as well, and those are on the slide too. Slide 7. So what is the process we're going to go through? You have received a PPP loan, and let's say it's for $100,000. Let's make it simple in the beginning and say all $100,000 was for payroll-related expenses, whether it was wages, salaries, tips, and any other types of payroll-related. So that could be vacation, it could be other kinds of expenses related to the payroll. So you've gotten that $100,000. You have dispersed the entire amount. You got the money to those employees. You now have no more money into the PPP. You're ready to be forgiven. Your first step then is to download the 3508 or 3508 EZ and fill that out. and get documentation together that will support where you spent that money. Once you have dispersed those funds completely, you actually have up to 10 months from the time you have spent your last penny to actually send that forgiveness request to your lender. That is so that where the documentation comes in, if it's going to take you a little bit of time to get documentation to support your expenses, we're going to give you that amount of time to do that. So you get your application, you get your documentation, you bring it to the lender. Step 2, your lender is going to then review your application. And it's your lender who is going to make the forgiveness decision. So the lender gets your documents for that $100,000. They look at your application. They look at your documentation and go, yep, all $100,000 went to allowable payroll or payroll-related expenses, and we can see that here. They will then notify you, and then the SBA will actually make the payment to the bank or credit union to cover that amount. Now, because of the large number of PPP loans that have been done in the state, and I have lenders here who have literally done thousands of these for small businesses, and we realize they're going to be coming in a very short window for that lender. So we're giving the lender up to 60 days from the date he or she receives your application to make a decision. Their decision will either be to completely approve your forgiveness request, or in certain circumstances where they have reviewed your application and they have decided that some of the money that you spent went for non-eligible related expenses. If so, then if it's partial, then they're going to put it on that part that was not approved onto a scheduled payment for you. If partially or fully approved, the lender then tells the SBA that they've approved either completely or partially, and they're requesting SBA cut them a check. SBA will then, in the final step, take that request from the lender, and if we agree, we're going to make the payment to the lender, including any accrued interest that might have been come in, and pay that to the lender. The lender will then put your loan in paid in full. The SBA will have up to 90 days to make that payment to that lender. And understand, if we think a lender that has 2,000 or 3,000 applications is really having to work hard, think about the SBA, where we have thousands of banks across the country all making their decisions and notifying us within a very short window of time. And so we will ask that lender for up to 90 days for us to issue that check. The lender receives word from the SBA, and they notify you of the forgiveness amount. What we hope is that they notify you that that full $100,000 was forgiven and that your loan is now paid in full. In certain circumstances, they may have decided it's only partially forgiven, so the unforgiven portion, they'll notify you of that and discuss how you'll start those payments. Slides 8. A couple of important things to remember as you're getting your documentation together. How much can be forgiven? Because it's a paycheck protection, we really were aiming this to get money into your business for payroll. So at a minimum, we want to see in your forgiveness that 60% went for payroll-related expenses, and we will allow 40% maximum for authorized non-payroll related expenses that your lender should have covered with you. Now, understand this is not an all or nothing thing. No matter how hard you tried, you couldn't bring employees back, or you couldn't get them all hired in. And so instead of being able to use that full 100,000 directly into payroll, let's say only 55,000 went to authorized payroll-related expenses. That's fine. It's not all or nothing. We will approve the 55. However, we will not add that missing 5% to the non-payroll. You still only get a total of 40% for non-payroll. That missing 5% would then be what would have to go onto a payment between you and that lender. But we want to see, we're hoping to see for full forgiveness between 60% payroll, 40% or more, or 40% non-payroll. Now, if it's applicable to you, if there was an EIDL advance to your business, that is going to be deducted from the forgiveness amount that we pay to the lender. So SBA, when they get that forgiveness from the lender, will look and see if so they will deduct that from the amount they pay to the lender. Also, SBA reserves the right to review and make final decisions concerning lender decisions on eligibility. Will we review every loan that is sent to us by a lender saying they want forgiveness? You know, maybe our grandchildren working for the SBA would get them all done when you think of how many thousands are there. But we will be reviewing. And we have that right to review, and then for us to make final decisions on whether we agree with the lender about eligibility issues or not. Slide 9. Just as a reminder, I'm going to do this very quickly. You should already be familiar with this. What is an eligible payroll cost? And, of course, it's any salary, wages, commissions, tips. It's any benefits to that employee that were a cost, and vacation, parental, family, medical leave. It can be state, local taxes that are assessed as part of an employee compensation. If you're a sole proprietor, that includes wages, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment. If you're a seasonal business, so your payroll fluctuates over a year based on seasonality, then we use the average monthly payroll cost that you incurred between February 15th and June 30th to be eligible. And then finally, if you're a new business and you did not have operating expenses in 2019, we did allow you to use an average monthly payroll cost that you incurred between January 1st to February 29th of 2020. Now, the other thing to remember on our wages, salaries, commissions, all of those are capped at $100,000 per eligible employee. So if you have an employee who is drawing $125,000 a year, we're only going to do covered eligible costs at up to a maximum of $100,000 for that employee. Slide 9. A couple of the other, some I can see some questions. So what are eligible for me for that 40% if I'm not doing 100% payroll? Your rent under your lease agreements would be eligible. Utilities that you have incurred, primarily, and really other expenses that you incurred that you are listing when you do your taxes as operating expenses, and you want to talk to your lender about those. We will do interest, not principal, but interest on mortgage obligations that the business had incurred, as well as interest on any other type of business debt that you incurred prior to February the 15th. So if you have some business credit cards or maybe you have a loan out for commercial equipment from some kind of equipment financing company. As long as that was incurred prior to February the 15th, the interest on those are also going to be considered eligible costs that we can look at forgiveness on. Slide 11. Now, one of the important things to remember is the covered period. That's the amount of time you have to actually disperse the money that the bank gave you on the date of disbursement. And that is the date that you, the borrower, got your check, the date you received the money to disperse. And so that is the beginning of, normally that is the beginning of your covered period. However, we do realize that just because you received a your PPP loan on June the 10th, that may not automatically coincide with your normal payroll cycle, and so we do allow you to use what we're calling an alternative payroll covered period. That would be when your cycle begins, actually, even though that might be outside the period. For any funds that you received, we are giving you up to 24 weeks from the date of receipt to disperse those eligible expenses. So you get them in, you disperse them within 24 weeks, and that's the covered period. There are a few exceptions, such as the alternative payroll covered period that might be involved, or if you have a different cycle on when you're paying your normal non-payroll related expenses. Slide 12, when must payroll costs be incurred? Because we talked about the coverage period, your payroll costs are eligible as long as you paid them or incurred them during the normal 24-week covered period, or paid on or before the next regular payroll date, alternative. And then when must non-payroll be incurred to be paid to be eligible? They're going to be eligible as long as those non-payroll related costs were paid during the 24-week covered period, or you incurred during the 24-week period and paid on or before the next regular billings date, even if that billing date is beyond that covered period. So your billing date would have been in, say, week 26, but we said 24 weeks for covered period. As long as that billing date is in there, that would be acceptable. Slide 13. Now, as we're talking about deferrals here, because you do not have to start making any payments immediately, because we're trying to get you to get the maximum amount of forgiveness possible. So there is that period before you would have to consider any principal and interest payment. So we're going to look here at the deferral period and the forgiveness. You, the borrower, may submit the loan forgiveness application anytime on or before maturity of the loan, including before the end of the covered 24 weeks. So you disperse all of your funds on week 15. No, you do not have to wait until week 24 to actually send your application for forgiveness in. You may start doing that as soon as you've dispersed, even if it's less than that 24 weeks. Now, if the borrower does not apply for forgiveness within 12 months, so what if for some reason you do not get your application for forgiveness into your lender within that 10-month grace period we provided you after the last of the covered period? At that point, it's no longer deferred. So if for some reason you go over that 10 months, it's no longer deferred. You're going to have to start making full principal and interest payment to that lender for that. So there's a good reason to get that in within that 10-month period, especially if you're counting on getting forgiven. Now, what if, even though you've gotten it in within the 10-month period, what if for some reason the lender determines that it was not eligible for forgiveness? In that case, the lender will notify you and will set up payment schedule with you. Now, If the SBA in a review determines that the loan is not eligible for forgiveness, and either in whole or in part, so of that $100,000 you applied for forgiveness, the SBA determines $20,000 of it was used for other costs that are outside the eligibility. Okay, in that case, the PPP loan is no longer deferred, and whatever the amount that was not approved for forgiveness, the borrower would then start making those payment and principal, and interest payments at that point. Slide 14. Let's look at the time frame one more time, because I really don't want you to have questions about how this time frame is working. Again, we want you to get forgiven. Your lender wants you to get forgiven. So let's not let it happen because we fall outside of a timeline. Lender must issue a decision to the SBA after they've gotten your completed applications within 60 days, where they're going to say, SBA, pay me in whole, or pay me partial because I've determined that some of it's not eligible. A decision will be approved in whole or in part, or denial. Now, if the lender denies, then the payments would start, or if a denial is due to pending review, SBA pulls yours out and says, we want to review that decision by that lender. It's going to be pending. We're going to give you the time for us to review. In the case of a lender denial, in whole or in part, you, the borrower, have the right to ask the lender to reconsider. Now, that's important. It's not automatic. You have the right to ask the lender to reconsider and give them information they need to be able to understand why it should be approved. Maybe you forgot some documentation that was there. All loan denials, however, that are decided by us at the SBA are final and will not be reconsidered. A denial by a lender can have a reconsideration. A decision by us will not. Slide 15. So what happens if you get denied? And again, either in whole or in part. The lender's going to tell you in writing. The SBA has the right, and the SBA has the right to review the lender's decision, but that is at our discretion. That is not automatic. Again, with all the thousands of PPP loans, it's not conceivable we would be able to look and review every one of those. We'll be looking at as many as we can. The borrower may request the SBA to review a decision within 30 days of notice. So lender notifies you in writing that the denial, we did not review it. You have the right to request SBA to review it, however, but that must be done within 30 days of your notice that the lender has told you of denial. The lender must notify us within 5 days of your request. We're going to look at that request and then let's make a decision. If SBA declines the request for review, which is our right, then we'll tell the lender, who will notify you. If SBA accepts the request for review, we're going to look at it then, and we will notify you and the lender of the results of our review and our decision. Now, in our decision, if we deny the forgiveness, again, in whole or in part, the lender will let you know that it's been denied by SBA and will set up the first dates of payment. If no SBA review occurs, lender will also notify you of that and will set up your date of first payments. So that's the route that it can go. You may have requests for reconsideration. Be sure you follow this schematic. Slide 17. We apparently took one out. If your loan or a portion of your loan is not forgiven, what's going to happen? Now, if that PPP loan was made to you prior to June the 5th, any money that was not forgiven after appeals or reviews and you're set up on a payment process, if the loan was prior to June 5th, you have a 2-year repayment in terms of the loan. If the loan was made June 5th or after, it's a 5-year repayment. However, for those of you that had a 2-year repayment, if both you and the lender, and notice I said it takes two to tango here, both the borrower and the lender must say, yes, we're willing to take that 2-year repayment term and make it 5. If the lender does not wish to take that 2-year repayment and extend it out to 5, it will remain a 2-year maturity on any loans that were made prior to June the 5th. In all cases, the interest rate on the unforgiven portion will be fixed at 1%. And again, in both cases, if you pay it off early, you're not obligated to go the entire time. We will not allow the lender to put any prepayment penalties on you, the borrower. Slide 18. So that is the PPP forgiveness process. Everything you need to know if you already have a PPP loan and want to get that forgiveness process moving, of what you need to do, forms you need to get, and the way that's going to flow. Also, your deferral period that exists while everybody is looking at your forgiveness request. And again, if you have any questions on that, the first place I would suggest is contact your lender, the loan officer who made the PPP loan to you. If they're not able to get a good answer, they'll probably contact us, or you can send an email to the Arkansas District Office email address, and we'd be glad to talk to you about that as well. So, as we close out and get ready for any questions that haven't been answered in the chat yet, what else is out there? Well, the SBA has invested a lot of money into what we call resource partners. These are not SBA employees. They are organizations that exist specifically to help the small business owner or entrepreneur with any small business related issues or questions. They are free of charge and strictly confidential, and can provide great counseling, consulting help to you. And that can include anything from looking at reviewing your cash flow, looking at financial records, financial statements, even submitting loan applications that you may have. Now, they're not going to do your application for you, but they will help take you through the process. They know the documentation and can be a great resource to you in doing that. Our resource partners here in Arkansas include the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center, SCORE, the Arkansas Women's Business Center, and the Veterans Business Outreach Centers, as well as local chambers. And I'm going to give you the contact information there. If for some reason you are on this call and you are not located in Arkansas, then we've also included a way, so you folks from Texas or Louisiana or wherever, you can click on this link and it will help you find the nearest district office of the SBA, and they can direct you toward any resource partners within their state. Slide 19, here's the contact information for our resource partners. Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center, well-established, great resource. 7 locations around the state in all the major universities. They cover every county in the state. They work with they work with existing businesses and startups and entrepreneurs. So please, if you want to get more about how they can help you, go to their website or give them a call to talk to one of their counselors. Our SCORE office, we have 2. We have one here in Little Rock, and we have one in Northwest Arkansas. SCORE, these are volunteers that are successful business people, successful professionals that share their experiences and their knowledge with small businesses. They can be a wonderful mentoring resource that you should take advantage of. Just a great example. We have at least one SCORE volunteer who's a successful restaurateur. has started and been operating restaurants. And so if you're thinking about starting a restaurant, who would be a better person to have in your hip pocket that somebody that has been there, done that, knows what they did wrong to help you avoid problems, knows what they did right to help game you. So do not fail to take advantage of leveraging those services for the score. Our Arkansas Women's Business Center, Ms. Chauncey Pettis, out of Winrock, they provide the same free consulting and training assistance, and like the name suggests, although they can work with anyone, they specialize in helping women business owners and entrepreneurs face challenges that are unique to them, as well as those on businesses in rural areas, minority business owners, veterans. So they have spent many years in doing that direct training for that group. Additionally, we have two great partners, Startup Junkie Consulting and Conductor here in Arkansas. I would strongly advise you to go to their website located here, see what all they have to offer, and things that they can do to help you grow that business. They're wonderful resources. And if you're a Twitter person, if you are not following us on Twitter, here's our Twitter handle at SBA_Arkansas. Come tweet with us. Joshua is our tweetmeister, and is always putting out very good information and enjoys getting your feedback. And then finally, if for some reason you are not on our Arkansas District Office email distribution list, here's a link that you can go to sign up. We send out emails to our small businesses on that update on a regular basis, whether it's informing you about webinars coming up, changes in any of the programs that are out there, or just notification of anything of general interest. We send those out, so don't fail to sign up for that. And then on slide 20, so here's us, the Arkansas District Office. Our phone number, 501-324-7379. We're always available to answer your calls by phone. You can, again, get on us on Twitter. Also, Arkansas_DO at SBA.gov is our general office email inbox. So questions you may have of a more specific nature, feel free to email us. One of our staff will be monitoring that, and we'll get a response back to you. And then finally, we have our own web page on the overall SBA.gov website, and you can click there to see what's going on here in Arkansas. And finally, yeah, we'd like to hear what you think. How is the SBA doing? Are we answering your questions? Are there questions that you have that we could answer? We really need to get feedback from you. You're our customers. We need to know if we're giving you the kind of information you need, and if there's additional we can help, we want to know. So please get back to us, and there's a link you can do that with. And with that, we've still got, gosh, doing pretty good. Got about 17 minutes. But we'll open it up for Q&A at this point. I have not been monitoring the conversations. It's looking like between Joshua and Claudia and most of your, and Suzanne, they've gotten you an answer. I'm available now, so if there was something else that you have question-wise that wasn't addressed, send me go ahead and put it in the chat. And also, Joshua, I guess if there's anyone on the program that would like to ask it on the phone, you can go ahead them if you wish. We'll do our best.
All right, thank you, Herb. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. So again, if you have any background noise, if you got TV on or music or having a sidebar conversation with a colleague, please go ahead and mute your mic because we will be able to hear you. So I will unmute everyone now. If you have a question, please jump right in.
Hey, this is Bob Rawson in Huntsville. Is
Hey, Bob.
the form, how are you, Herb? Is the form finalized? We're no longer, like if somebody comes in now, that form that you've got for forgiveness is final.
Well, Bob, it's good to hear from you too. I love my lenders. It's as final as anything from the SBA either is. I will say this, as of today, July the 15th, it is final. And since borrowers are starting to submit, I would be very, very surprised if there's any updates. I will say this, if a updated application for forgiveness does come out, I'm sure we will allow retroactive, so that if if the new one comes out August the 1st and you've already been receiving applications on right now the current application, we're not going to make the folks go back and do a new one. Now, sure,
But I keep hearing conversations, mostly on the radio or TV, that there's a push to get a very simplified one page if it's less than $150,000.
I hear the same thing. I hear the same things. All I can say, Bob, is unless it comes to me from Edward Haddock, our district director, or comes from one of the grand poobahs up in Washington as official, I don't even worry about what I'm hearing, because who knows how it could be changed up, but it could be. It's the best I can do for you. Right now, go with the form you got.
Okay. There's been some thought that maybe since you got so much time to get it in, to wait for the simplified form. Is that advisable?
Well, because again, nobody at SBA has called me and said, "Hey, Herb, what do you think about us doing a simplified form? And here's what we're thinking about. What do you think?" I have nothing. I can't do anything. I can just go by the marching orders that I have. If if a borrower chooses to wait and gamble, that's their call. Don't lose that 10-month period though, because if you go a day over that allowed 10-month, guess what? There ain't no forgiveness. So, I mean, I would not, if I was talking to a borrower right now, I would say, let's just get the process going. Let's get forgiven. And if it means you have to fill out a couple extra quit lines, let's get it done and get it over with. As a lender, I would kind of want that anyway, because I want to see that pretty paid in full that comes out of SBA.
Yep.
Okay,
thank you.
Hey, anytime. Any other questions? And for those of you who don't know, Bob Ralston is with Cornerstone Bank up in the northern part of the state. We talk quite a bit, and they're a great SBA resource partner, as are all of our lending institutions. But Bob never hesitates to ask questions, so we appreciate that.
I have a question. This is Crystal calling from Little Rock.
Yes, Crystal.
And I have a client who is a sole proprietor. He has not yet filed for the PP loan. This is his second year in business.
That's fine.
And so he has a past due federal tax obligation. Will he be able to use that to pay for his past due?
No, ma'am. Not on the past due. Now, if by some chance there is a workout, it was agreed,
Right.
then that would be something he or she, your client, he or she, can provide to the lender and let them make a decision. In the past, we've said, I mean, not necessarily just for the PPP, but for a lot of our regular 7As, if there's a agreed workout, we will consider that. I have not seen on the PPP, but again, but regardless, that money cannot be used to catch him up. It can, just like the debt that might be incurred, eligible PPP is the monthly interest obligations, What is not eligible would be to refinance existing debt or try to consolidate. So it's only what's going, the interest that is during that covered period.
Yes, this is Scott. I've got a question about the 24 weeks. When we first got our money, they said, well, you have 8 weeks.
Correct.
Has that changed?
Yes. Yes, Calvin, and it did. Originally, the SBA thought that 8 weeks would be sufficient amount of time as a covered period for you as the borrower to get your money and get it dispersed. And then we started getting feedback from our borrowers and from lenders saying, hey, it's not as easy as we thought. We had to let certain employees go. We're having to rehire. We've got some that don't want to come back, so we got to hire new ones. We're really not going to be able to disperse that money within that 8-week covered period. So we automatically changed for everyone, regardless of whether you had originally been under 8 weeks or not, and made that 24 weeks. So that gave you more time to disperse that loan amount. Did not allow you to increase the size because it's still only for making those covered payments for that 2.5 times your average annual, but just gave you more time to bring those employees back on if need be and get them involved.
Okay, so if my period that I began, I had, say, 12 employees. I actually had one employee die. And I had one that had COVID, and so she was furloughed, and now they're coming back, and we're replacing the lady that died for an unrelated reason. So now my total number of employees, is that going to be the audit point? How many employees you had when you started? How many you got now?
Well, we'll look at that, but we understand that that's the reason we expanded to the 24-week, because we went maybe Herb Lawrence was your employee when you put, but Herb died or Herb said, I don't want to come back and work or whatever. So you're going to have to go through the process of replacing Herb Lawrence, not that you can. And so that even may be at a slightly reduced amount or not as much. That's okay. We understand that, and we're giving you forgiveness partial on that. So just because you had to go out and rehire or hire new folks, and it may be at a different level, we're willing, and the lender is willing to consider that in your forgiveness request.
So the easy application, would that still apply, or would you?
Well, the easy is really if there was absolutely no change in your employees. So you had 8 employees prior. You still had 8 employees when the covered period began, and after the covered period, you still had those same 8 employees. That's the easy. If there's any
the
change,
same 8 employees, it's not positions.
Yes.
It's the same people.
Same 8. Yes. If it's a difference, then you'd want to use the 3508, not the easy.
Okay, I won't dominate your time. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you for asking. Anything else?
Can you please clarify the relationship between the PPP and the EIDL advance, and how the advance is either taken away or how it affects your forgiveness on the PPP?
Okay. Of course, the EIDL advance and the PPP were really aimed at different uses of proceeds. The PPP was primarily aimed at payroll. The EIDL was aimed at other operating expenses. It could include payroll, but it was trying to look at giving you the ability to make regular obligations even though your revenue stream had died up. Under the EIDL, we had 2 options. There were not options, there were 2 issues. There was the regular EIDL that could go up to $2 million. That was a loan. And then for for an immediate, in other words, some people had a need for that money quickly. We had the EIDL advance that could be requested by the borrower. That would be $1,000 per employee for up to a maximum of $10,000. That was what is being called our SBA grant, for lack of a better word, because it was not a loan. It was being given to you. We had instructed our lenders that if you received an advance, then within a certain period of time, and Suzanne, if you've got it, I don't have access to it right now, what those dates were as far as how that worked. It'd be nice if you could post that. But we said when the lender sends the forgiveness request in, SBA will look and see whether or not there was an advance, and that will be reduced from the forgiven portion of the loan. And we do have a, Joshua, if you're on, I'm not looking at our webinar schedule. Do we still have another upcoming webinar specifically on the EIDL?
Yes, sir. We will have another webinar on EIDL next week, and if you sign up for our updates, then we'll be able to send that out to y'all. But for this week, I'm going to go ahead and post what we've got. So tomorrow we're going to have a general COVID-19 resources briefing, so that will cover general SBA programs as well as a little bit PPP and EIDL. And then Friday we will have an extended Q&A session with SBA. So you are welcome to register for either of those, and we'll get some information on the webinars scheduled next week out to you.
And to the last lady that asked, I probably did not answer your EIDL versus PPP related question correctly. If you would send an email to us at the district office, give us a little bit more information, one of us will get back and get you the data that you need.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Still got 4 minutes before lunchtime.
Hey, Herb, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the 3508, what if you only hired back the full-time employees and not the part-time employees? Can I still use the 3508 EZ form?
My response would be no, because the whole thing centers around no change in employee status. Even though you had a FTE issue that I would do, now mine would be that you need to use the 3508, not the EC.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I saw in the chat, Lucas Stewart, when can banks begin submitting applications for forgiveness to the SBA? Lucas, those are that final amount of instructions to the lenders is going to be forthcoming very quickly. In fact, any lenders should be receiving an email within the next couple days from our FTA, and that will have that instructions. Borrowers, don't worry about that. Lenders, I know you're anxious to analyze those applications and tell us you want your money. We're anxious to do that for you. I would recommend lenders, if you're on here, go ahead and take the applications, take the documentation, go ahead and make your decision. And then hopefully within the next couple days, though, we will have the channel that you will use to notify us at the SBA. Look for that very quickly. We had received some information that the FTA will be sending that out directly to lenders very quickly. And we're still waiting to see what it's going to look like. Tell Suzanne I'll get to her. Anything else? Hey, and Suzanne, your question, basically we have that one slide in the EIDL about the three timeframes for when you must, when you don't have to, and when you can notify the lender about your EIDL. That would be helpful. And Guy, let's see. I have a part-time employee who resigned. Will this affect forgiveness? In other words, is there a head count requirement? We do use FTE. However, we understand that there will be situations that you can't impact the fact that employee resigned or failed to come back. We would hope that you would tell us that you have found somebody new and hired them, but understand we will have a lot of leeway in challenges. If you gave your best faith effort to get back to the employee status level you were, and yet despite that could not, and you document that, then we're going to understand that. But you need to document. And Brent said, okay, Derek's got that. And Jerry, Friday's SBA Q&A, could you please provide a presentation? I'm sure this is going to be your fireside chat with Edward Haddock, our district director, and all of our staff, and we will be doing as best of our ability Q&As on any SBA-related topic, especially those with COVID, that you're going to have. For that reason, we probably don't have a presentation format put together, but we can follow up after that Q&A with any documentation questions you may have. And since we are now at 12:01, if we did not get to your question, send an email to us at our district office email address. We will get you that answer as quickly as we possibly can. Joshua, you got anything else?
No, I think that's it. Herb, thank you so much for doing such an amazing job. Thank you to Suzanne and Derek and Claudia for also helping answer all those questions in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and post again the webinars we've got for tomorrow and for Friday. Please go ahead and sign up for those now. Today's webinar did sell out, so make sure you go ahead and register well in advance for tomorrow and Friday.
And Joshua, real quick, there was a great question that Gail asked. Can we submit questions ahead of time for Friday? You know, that's a wonderful idea. I'm going to answer that and say absolutely, it will help us. Send it to the district office email, and in the subject say questions we want answered on Friday or something to that effect, so that we know not to email you back individually, but we can do that. And that would be a great help and aim us in the right direction. So thank you very much for that. All right.
Yeah, absolutely, Herb. And I'm going to put that email address again in the chat. So if there's no other questions, it's 12:02. We'll let you get to lunch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please register for our upcoming webinars, sign up for updates, follow us on Twitter, and any feedback you have for us, please go ahead and provide that to sba.gov/feedback. And have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks for coming.